Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and welcome to the Eddie Network podcast. I want to take time out from having conversations with my guests to talk with you directly about one of the facets of the Eddie Network podcast that has captured my attention lately, and I think it's really important. And it's not just important to the podcast itself; it's really important to all of our work as individuals in the world. When I started the podcast 3.5 years ago, I built it around a simple idea, and it was a simple idea that I had been practicing in my business life for now over 30 years, and that is networking through introductions. And I would ask you, or ask people that I knew, who do you know that you think I should know, and would you introduce me? Would you introduce us? And for the podcast, it was who do you know that you think I should have on the podcast? Should I have a conversation with on the podcast? And would you introduce us? And the stipulation in that was these are not people that you have some appreciation for, but you don't have a relationship with. These are people that you have some connection to, some relationship. When you send a note out introducing us, they're going to look at that note and see it's from you, and therefore they're going to respond respectfully and transparently because it's you that is making the recommendation. And the extension of that is that I gain a measure of status because you have associated me with yourself in introducing your friend or your colleague or someone that you know to me. And when I do that in return and I introduce you to people, it's the same thing. I'm saying to those people, I really think you should know this person that I had on the podcast. I think you two should get together and have a conversation. You two have something to share. And I think that's the essence of the networking that we should be doing, is that we're finding people that we can share things with who will advance our individual and corporate and collective projects, programs. So I'm seeing this as a growing center of activity and center of inquiry. I think that we should be careful not to think that the more we do with AI, the less we need to do with people. I think actually we need to do more with people. We need to have more conversation. We need to have conversations about what we're learning from AI with people who are not like our AI personality. We need to have those conversations with one another. So here's what I'd like to do, and I'd really like to do this in over a very short period of time, week to 10 days. And this will come out on Monday, the 27th of July. So I'm going to take this video and post it on YouTube, and then do a version for Substack and another version for LinkedIn and for Facebook. And I want to ask 3 questions of you, and I'd like you to respond to me at Substack in the comments section there. That's the easiest way to kind of collect a lot of comments. So I have 3 questions, and you will find these 3 questions in the show notes. The first question is, how many people do you estimate are in your network? When you talk about your network with other people, what is the number in your mind that you think you have in your network? Now, there are 2 ways of looking at this. One is, what is that kind of initial ring, a circle of people that surrounds you and you surround them as a network? And then there's that other way of looking at a network as a collection of different degrees of networking So you know one person, and they've introduced you to a second person. That second person is on the second ring, and then that second person introduces you to a third person, and they're in the third level of that ring. So that those are different degrees of networking, and it's all very fluid because once you've been introduced to that person on the third level out, then that person, like if you have introduced me to someone that's three degrees of from you and me, and that person becomes a guest on the podcast, then that person moves from being at the third degree level to the first degree level with me. And so that's the dynamic that's going on with our networks, is that no one is ever in one position all the time. And there's constantly moving, and we're building relationships. We're closing what Ron Burke calls a structural hole. Structural hole will be, I know someone, I know you, and I know someone, a second person, but you two don't know each other, and I introduce you, the two of you together, and that is called bridging a structural hole. And that's what happens. That's what we're doing when we're networking through introductions. We're bridging these structural holes that exist in our networks. And the more we do that, the stronger our networks come. And it's really true that what Mark Granovetter says is that the strength of the network is really in the people that we have very loose ties to. It's called the strength of loose ties. It's not the people that we know the best who strengthen the network. It's the people who we know the least, and yet we have some kind of respectful relationship with them in some way. We've had some kind of contact, we've had some kind of conversation, and we appreciate that. So I'm pretty certain that if I contacted every one of my guests from the podcast and asked them to do this directly, that the vast majority of them would respond positively and do this, or something else. You know, if I sent an email out to all of them and said, "Who do you know who has some expertise in this area, and would you connect me to them?" And it may be an area where they're going to answer a question that I want to be having in that conversation on the podcast. It'd be that sort of thing. So who do you know who's a knowledge expert in a certain field? Because I haven't had that person on, hadn't had anyone like that on the podcast, and I'd like to have a conversation with them. If you know someone like that, then you're going to introduce me to them, and you're going to more likely do that because there is an understanding that there's a basis of respect between us and trust. And if there isn't, then we should be talking about that, because trust is a currency that is invaluable. It's more valuable than anything else in the world. So, first question is, how many people do you estimate in your network? The second question is, how many degrees of your network can you identify? And and of those degrees, how many have you accessed in the last year? So in a sense, I'm really asking, how many times have you asked people to introduce you to people that you need to know, but that you don't know them yet? So that's a way to extend by degrees. And then the third question is, if you could change one thing about the way you conduct networking, the way you manage your network, what would that be? Just one thing that you would like, because what I'm thinking is that we need to do more of this. We need to have give more attention to our networks, and I'm going to suggest something to you now that I want you to think about as well. I see that most of us network because we see it as beneficial to ourselves, and we're glad for it to be beneficial to others. But principally, we do our networks because we need resource people for ourselves. But what I think I would like us to talk about is, how do I push my networking relationships to the farthest extremity? If we talk about the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, meaning within six relationships, everybody in Hollywood knows Kevin Bacon, has a connection to Kevin Bacon. Well, my understanding is that in the actual social science research into these networking degrees is that we're really only about 2.6 degrees from one another. It's a small world. It's a small world after all. I won't sing that song, but it is a small world. And there are people that you probably know that you have no reason to know other than someone has introduced them to you. So if you could change something, what would that be? And what I'm thinking is that we should be talking about this in a more deliberate and structured way. We'll have a monthly conversation, uh, training sort of event where we're talking about how to extend our relationships, extend our influence, extend our impact to the farthest extent of the people that we know. So let me give you an idea of what that looks like. Sometime towards the end of this year, I will eclipse the number of 300 as the number of guests that I've had, 300 different people who have been on the podcast. And if we take one of the social science research statistics that says we all manage about 150 relationships, it's not the same thing as connections, but relationships, then those 300 people and the 150 people that each one of them know constitutes about 45,000 people. And if we took the 45,000 people and we extended that ring of the network, another ring of 150 people, we're now moving into pretty large numbers. And I think the way I was looking at it the other day, that within about 5 degrees, we can be at 1 billion people. That's how we can have impact in the world. So if you have an idea, if you're the promoter of a particular way of doing something, and you'd like to reach 1 billion people, then we should be talking about how we can do that. Because if you can reach 1 million people and change the way they do what they do, change their mindset, change their way they operate their business, then that's a pretty significant thing to think about. Now, you may think, well, that's a ridiculous thing to think about and consider. Well, it's only ridiculous if you haven't tried it. If you haven't tried it, you don't know. You really don't know. And I don't know. But that's what I'm interested in. And it's something I've been interested in for about 10 years, to see how far a network can extend itself in terms of its effectiveness. So let me return to what I want, what I'm asking of you. I'm going to ask 3 questions. How many people do you estimate in your network? How many degrees of your network have you accessed in the last year? And if you could learn something or change something about your networks or how you do networking, what would that be, so that we might have a kind of an in-service training sort of event where we address some of these questions. Those are the 3 questions I'm asking, and if you could answer them at my Substack, then I'd appreciate that very much. And we'll be back to regular programming next Thursday, but this is for Monday, the 27th of July. And I thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.